if you're really lucky enough to be with someone who is in that state, explain to us how this feels.
Well, I'm going to agree with David Hawkins completely. He says, the energy is miraculous, inclusive, non-selective, transformative, unlimited, effortless, radiant, devotional, saintly, diffuse, merciful, and selfless. And I can tell you, because I spent many, many hours in this state with a dear friend who also was in this state for many, many hours. And it happened over a 2-day period. And nothing else feels like being alive compared to this. This is such a remarkable experience that once you've been in that state, now I've been in the state where it was just me, and I never forgot it. This was an experience that was far more miraculous, where it wasn't just me. And I've also been in it many, many times at different ashrams around the world, where I was there with the enlightened masters and the monks or the dasas, and they were in that state. And then I was coming into and leaving that state over a period of days and days and weeks. So you want to do this, you want to experience this.
Yes, without any drugs, just naturally and organically.
That's absolutely true, absolutely true. Because if you do it through ayahuasca or you do it through psychedelics of any kind, then you're going to crash. And that is a terrifying experience if you're not with somebody who's very, very adept at getting somebody through it. You're right.
Now, how long can someone who can, let's say, access this non-duality, which is also unconditional love, remain in that state?
Well, in the beginning, you're going to go in and out of these states. It's called Satori. And Eckhart Tolle speaks a lot about this in The Power of Now and also his book, A New Earth. So in the beginning, you're going to have a fleeting glimpse where just for that moment, you're not judging. Just for that instant, there's no little voice, like the little gnats that were making all that noise are not buzzing in your ear for that second or two. As you welcome that, as you engage with that, as you practice controlling your mind, those periods of time expand. There get to be more and more of them. And then ultimately you get to this place where I've gotten to, and so many of my clients have, where it can be hours. And that's when life becomes a joy.
And the company you keep, regardless if there are things that are said that you could take offense to, you do not.
Correct, correct. A, because it won't help.
Right.
B, because unconditional love is all about surrender and letting go. C, because unconditional love is about being in that state of oneness where you and the other are one. So there's no person to take offense at, because you are the other and you are yourself. So there's no possibility of offense.
Perfectly put.
Woo!
I know. Chills again. Now, what is the feeling that we have when we really are in unconditional love?
Well, again, David Hawkins describes it as inner joy, faith, ecstasy, patience, compassion, persistence, essence, beauty, synchronicity, perfection, surrender, rapture, vision, and openness. And I know that the friend that was with me commented again and again on how I was able to be, to whatever degree I was, in that state of unconditional love and oneness and acceptance and surrender. And it's not like I was doing it, I was just consciously staying in the state. That's all you have to do. You just have to consciously stay in the state. using the tools that either I've taught you or someone else has taught you. You can't like stay in a state of synchronicity. You can't stay in a state of perfection, if only we could. You can't stay in a state of rapture by focusing on rapture. You stay in the state of non-duality where you don't judge yourself, you don't judge the other, you let go of what you think you prefer, you accept what is, you surrender, you surrender, you surrender. And in that instantaneous moment, love appears.
That sense of acceptance and absolute gratitude.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Gratitude, absolutely.
Oh, that's my theme word this
Yes,
year.
yes, gratitude. Just to be alive. Just to have lived long enough to be here today, to talk to you, to be on the show, to share with all of you. That's the gratitude, right there. Whatever is, that's the gratitude. Not all the other things that you were hoping might also.
That's huge for people to understand.
Yes.
In every breath you take.
And in that moment, that leaves space for wonderful things to show up, by the way, but you can't trick God or the universe into it. You can't say, I'm going to pretend to accept so that I get what I want. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And I know because I tried many times.
Oh, gee.
Many times, but it doesn't work.
That's the human condition.
That's right.
We're moving above that.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. It's true.
Now, I know that you mentioned synchronicity, and know that when I'm in the zone, things just happen the way I want them to. And so please explain to us how this is a big part of it.
Because when you're in that zone, so to speak, you're in the flow, you're in the quantum field, everything is in the field, everything is in the quantum universe, and so there is no necessity for doing, but more than that is you're also getting out of your own way. So if you want to look at it in a practical way, you say, okay, well, I'm not messing it up. I'm allowing it to just be. I'm allowing it to flow. If you're more right-brained, then you would say, well, I guess I'm just allowing it, and I'm just moving along with it, and I'm in the tide, and so the tide is flowing that way, and I'm going that way with it, and it's all perfect. And there is this moment of synchronicity where it all begins to flow because your state is so high and so pure.
And it's lovely when we're conscious of our consciousness. What a gift. Now, how does this actually shift our experience of other people and situations?
Okay, so David Hawkins says, as the state progresses, all of existence takes on a different meaning, and we become aware of the inner beingness and essence of everything, rather than just its form. Because of this change of perception, the perfection of all things stands revealed. So for those of you who don't remember the 70s, or for those of you who never took any drugs, then the only downside to that is that you never had this experience, which I had so many times in the 60s and the 70s. And once you've had that experience, you don't have to have a flashback, a literal biochemical flashback. You can just remember what it was like to sit around a party and everyone at the party was loving everybody. And I don't mean an orgy, I mean a party where everyone had their clothes on and we were just, smoking a joint or something like that. But everybody was in this state of just peace and bliss and joy and oneness. And now, as Gigi said, the point is to be able to reach that state without drugs. Now we have the technology to get there. And I'm absolutely saying don't do it with drugs. I haven't, touched anything, since the end of 1979. So be very aware you can do this now by yourself without any other help except the presence of others who are in a peaceful and blissful state. That you're going to need in the beginning.
And you can help people that have complications with their thoughts and their thinking to retrain the brain to get to this place.
Yeah, and you know what I love to do with people who are my clients, I just included in the coaching package. Somebody texts me and says, Susan, you know, I need a healing, I need 15 minutes, I need some oneness energy, whatever they want to call it. Doesn't matter, it's fine. And I'll say, okay, I'll be available, and I give them a couple of options, and then I call them and I just work on them in silence, you know, very, very silently, get myself into a oneness state, get myself into that state of bliss and joy, see them surrounded by that state, say their name silently again and again, and they report that they feel more calm, they feel more peaceful, great things happen. Sometimes while we were doing that, an email appeared or the phone rang, something that they wanted appears because they're back in the field again.
I love that. Now, how does that change our sense perceptions?
You mean like time stopping? Yeah. When something very blissful occurs, time can stop. When something very traumatic occurs, time can also stop. I've seen both. And the beauty exists in both of them because you know that all of this is just a fantasy. This is not real. This idea that it's whatever time it is in California and another time in different time zones, that's not real. That's just an agreed upon fantasy. And the fact that we're going to be on the air for 1 hour is again an agreed upon fantasy because time expands and time contracts. And sometimes we do a show and it feels like we were on the air for 5 minutes.
Yes.
This is going to be one of those shows. And then sometimes we do our 1 hour show and it feels like we're here for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, but it has to do with if you're in the zone, if you're in your heart, time has a tendency to stop, to contract, just. And if you're in your head, then things can seem endless. So that's one of the ways to know where you are so that you can remind yourself to get back into your heart.
The ultimate place.
Yes.
And so is this when it feels as if time does indeed stop?
Yes. I mean, truly, and David Hawkins again, there is no past or future. In its highest vibration, love sees no separation between the individual and the rest of the universe. We experience at-oneness with all things. In this state, the total oneness of all things has a greater sense of reality than the ordinary perceptions of the self in the world, and it can only be described as profound. So you get that, it's almost a depth perception, where you come away from an experience, if you shared it with another human being, and you feel that you've seen the secrets of the universe together. You feel as if you have plumbed your soul and your partner plumbed your soul and vice versa. It's an experience over which you'll never get. And when you've had this experience, on the one hand, you feel full. You don't feel that desperate necessity to run after that experience day after day. That need is dissipated. But not entirely, because at the same time you say to yourself, oh, that was so great, I want to do that again. But you are able to do it in a different way, without that grasping and grabbing. That is, I think, the most valuable aspect of experiencing unconditional love. The grasping and the grabbing can, not will, but can cease.
Boy, this is exciting information. Now, I know, Susan, that your motto on your marriage form website is when two hearts meet, they enter the heart space. And in your definition of marriage is when two merge into one. What else do we need to really have the most joyous and unconditional loving relationship?
Well, the other parts of the body have to merge too, not just the heart. So that's when we get into conversations about tantric yoga, which is about the tantra, the yoga of making love. So it starts with the heart, not the head. But if it's wonderful to merge with someone in an emotional two into one manner, then imagine, if you've never experienced this rarity, what is it like to have an experience of tantric yoga with someone when you're making love? So that's the ultimate.
We're not going to display this tonight.
Nor any night. Because we're not allowed to. We're not allowed to show this on the air.
Now, do you believe that we really need to enter this state of oneness before we can expect a relationship to become joyous and nourishing?
So Brian gave me another book, and this book, he gave me volume 1, 2, and 3 of the series called Telos by Aurelia Louise Jones. And I am reading volume 1, and I'm going to give you a couple of really remarkable quotes from that. So the answer to this question about entering into a state of oneness before we can expect a love relationship to become joyous and nourishing. Many of you have experienced marriage relationship as devastating, bringing more stress and disappointment than joy and sustained happiness. The reason is that stressful relationships are based on duality rather than the oneness of divine love. Unless a relationship is based on oneness, it can never fulfill the longing of the heart that you feel so deeply. So yes, there's nothing more important, in my opinion, that I can do than what I've done all these years and continue to do to seek oneness with myself and with the divine. Those people I know who say, well, you know, you're preaching to the choir, God bless them, because they have the highest probability. Those people who tell me I'm preaching to a non-believer, I say, you know, when I was a very little girl, I didn't believe in God. I was in a lot of pain. And then somebody said to me, but what if there is a God? What if there is a God and you go through the end of your life and you've never connected to God or given God a chance to show up in your life? Then what? Would you feel that you've made a mistake? And I realized, and I was very young, I must have been about 4 years old, I realized that would have been a terrible mistake, and that I didn't have the information I needed. So I decided I was going to change my tune. I was going to operate as if there was a God, give God every possibility of communicating with me. And those of you who've watched me on Gigi's show know I've been very blessed. I've had so many experiences of the divine coming to me. And then I didn't waste my time at all.
And every time God winks at you, you wink back.
I do. I say, thank you. Thank you.
Now, what does this book actually teach us about the urgency of reaching a state of self-love and oneness with our own selves?
She says that for those of you looking for your beloved somewhere outside yourself, let me say that this is not the way it will happen. Your beloved is also part of you. He or she may have a body in the outer world, but meeting your twin flame when one is not fully ready for that initiation is a bit tricky. It is not often in your best interest because the experience of the third dimension does not always offer compatibility of character and spirit unless both parties have reached the same level of readiness and evolution. Now, of course, as a coach, and especially a relationship coach, I have developed a lot of skills that allow me to motivate people into this state, motivate people to learn what they need to learn in this state. One of the exercises I particularly love is Who's Looking Through My Eyes, where you look straight ahead. Now I'm looking at the camera, but I'm really looking at you guys. So if I say who's looking through my eyes, it's that my soul is connection with you. Now at the Oneness University, they would teach us how to do eye healings or eye diksha. And all you have to do is look at someone. You don't have to lift your arms or touch or any of that. You just look at them, gaze. So who's looking through my eyes is not Susan Allan, the personality. It's my soul with a capital S, or myself with a capital S. And you can do the very same thing. You can look at me and Gigi. So who's looking through your eyes is your soul and your true self. And when you live in that way, it clicks and you enter into a different state. And one of my clients texted me tonight that he closed a big deal. He's so thrilled. And I just taught him this exercise, and he told me he did this exercise 10 times today. So he was very focused today on being in this state, bringing this state forth, this state of presence, which is also unconditional love for yourself. And the result is he got a fantastic deal.